Oh, I hate that. Come on, Mark. Good morning. It is Wednesday, June 18th, 2014, and we're in the Senator Hearing Room, Courthouse Square, 555 Court Street in Salem for our weekly Board of Commissioners meeting. We begin our meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance, so please join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a new person with a different cadence on the pledge. We'll work on that over a period of years. It'll all sound the same. So, we start our meeting today with some presentations. We have 3 of them, all for wonderful people doing good things for Marion County. And I'll start with the CAO Teamwork Award. And it says John Latimer and Rod Calkins on it. You take your microphone. Thank you.
He needs to.
Yeah, you need the microphone,
Yeah,
Rod, please.
TV won't pick it up if it's not in the microphone, Rod.
Comes Mark.
This is more relevant for the audience anyway, and that is that the CAO Teamwork Award apparently is really healthful chocolates. Guilty as charged.
Yes, guilty as charged. I started this when I first came to Marion County because I was pushing an enterprise approach to managing Marion County, and we have some folks that really do good work at the health department, and one of the things that they did was they got accredited. It's the only health department in the state of Oregon who's accredited by the
Yay! Public Health Accreditation Board.
I can never say it right. Okay, National Board.
We're fabulous.
Yes. Okay. So we wanted to present this to the folks that work so hard to put together the materials to make this award possible. So I think rather than having me do that, since these folks are so important for Marion County Health, we'll let them do it.
Well, I had the pleasure for 2 years to work closely with a team of 3 people who really helped to model what we were looking for across the health department, and then helped every team by looking at their documents and getting everything in order. And it was a lot of work. And that was Lindsay Schwartz, our accreditation coordinator, and Carolyn Stegel from our environmental health program, one of our EHS 3s. And then we also had Jennifer Eskridge, who has left us for another job in the Portland area. But without these 3 people, it wouldn't have happened. So.
Thanks.
Well, Rod, can I just add something? If it's milk chocolate, it has calcium. It's heart healthy. There's a little iron, so it really is, in small amounts, it really is very good for you.
Yeah.
Right, so just want to point that out.
Well, thank you all. We really appreciate the work you do. Thanks so much. Rod, do you want to do this? We also have another award. It's called the Vision Award. It's for somebody who has a lot of vision in terms of creating programs and pushing to make those programs come to fruition. So, Rod, why don't you present this?
So as you know, public health enhances the health of everyone in Marion County through disease prevention and health promotion. And Pam Hutchinson has been one of our strongest advocates for health promotion, healthier communities. It's not just the accreditation. We've just heard about accreditation. A lot of people did stellar work at the health department on this. But that accreditation would not have happened without the vision, leadership, and persistence of one person, and that person is Pam Hutchinson. So I'm very pleased that the board has seen fit to honor her with a Vision Award this morning for her leadership at the Health Department, part of which has been the accreditation process.
These folks are great examples of the quality of the employees we have in Marion County, and I'm really proud of them, particularly you, Pam. Thank you.
Oh, sure. Come on in here. No, they can just come in right in front. Man's still probably taller than me, dang it. Yeah, would you? No, you don't have to. I blinked. Dang it. Good for you.
Congratulations. Well deserved.
We have another nice award this morning, Volunteer Appreciation Award. Bill Burgess and Tom Rolfing, they're both here. You want to come on up and grab a microphone and tell us who this person is?
Hi, we're very happy to be here today to present to someone who has done great work for us in the county, the Board of Property Tax Appeals. If you're familiar with that, that's not the place where a lot of people come for fun. But it is a place where we're able to provide citizens with a hearing on their valuation of their property. And it can be a very touchy thing, a very emotional thing for people. But we have somebody who has led this for us over 20 years now with both flair and decorum in such a way that people could feel dignity and respect no matter what the decision. And most of the time, the decision was not in the petitioner's favor, but they still went away knowing that they were heard. And it takes quite a bit of work to make this happen. And Sue Thompson has been able to do that for us for now over 20 years. And she first started off as a regular board member, but then she's been in the leadership role for the last 12 years, other than this last year. I think the year that she had over 800 hearings, maybe that was the reason she decided that she'd had enough. She was gracious enough to stay around in case we needed her on the reserve thing, but saying, no, I really don't want to do this anymore, though I've done it so well. So she's really set the bar high for our other folks now on the board. She's done well in training them and in just being a great role model for them. And we're just so happy to present to Sue Thompson her award. I know, Tom, because she's done many things. She had to be off the board for a couple of years due to state rules because she was also our assessor for a period.
Definitely, I'd like to thank Sue for all she's done for us in the years that she spent on the board. She provided a lot of class, I think, to the whole process, and consistency with her number of years of service, which is hugely important. And obviously, when she stepped up to help Marion County in time of need as interim assessor in 2006, we definitely appreciate that. Thank you very much.
I want to say thank you for the opportunity that has been offered to me by Marion County to have this service that I could provide. And it meant a lot to me. It meant a lot to me to get to know so many wonderful people to work with. I appreciate every one of you, and you too. Thank you very, very much, and thanks, Bill and Tom.
Bill, Tom, would you come back here again, please? Well, let me do this. Oh, I don't have a card. Thank you. Let's close it up.
See everybody. No, you're good. We just have to be able to see everybody. And we'll take a couple here. So, 1, 2, 3. Smile. 1, 2, 3. Go ahead.
Tish can make you smile. Again, thanks to everybody for all their hard work and effort, and Sue especially. She's been wonderful to work with, and many things still involved with me on the Oregon Garden Board, so we'll continue our adventures. All right, let's kind of get down to work. But the first item is public comment. Although we have a number of people here, I don't have anyone signed up. Was anyone looking for this opportunity to say something this morning? All right. Then let's move to the consent calendar, and that would be Commissioner Carlson.
Right, and Mr. Chair, before I move the consent calendar, I'd also like to make a motion that we move 3 items that are under treasure on the consent agenda to the action items. There's one approving an order authorizing the investment of surplus funds, another approving a resolution distributing change funds, and a third one that's a 3-year contract to provide payment processing services to Marion County. So I would move those 3 items be put on the action agenda.
I'll second the motion.
It's moved and seconded to remove 3 items under the treasure to the action calendar. All in favor, then say aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes.
And so now, Mr. Chair, I would move the shorter list of consent calendar items. Under Board of Commissioners, approve renewal of a memorandum of understanding with the Oregon Garden Foundation for $100,000 for foundation administration and capital equipment purchases. Under Health Department, approve amendment number 14 to the intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon Health Authority for $424,475 for community addictions and mental health services. Under Public Works, approve an order appointing Bill Brower as Vice Chair of the Marion County Solid Waste Management Advisory Council to a term ending June 30th, 2015, and approve an order reappointing Bonnie Sullivan to the Marion County Solid Waste Management Advisory Council to a term ending June 30th, 2018. Under the Sheriff's Office, approve amendment number 2 to the intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon Department of Corrections to add $10,960,126 for the second year of the 2014-15 biennial plan. Also, still under Sheriff, approve amendment number 1 to the intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon Department of Corrections to add $511,335 for Measure 57 Community Corrections and extend the agreement until June 30th, 2015. Approve amendment number 1 to the 3 contracts with Bridgeway Recovery Services to increase funding for the Reentry Initiative and Prison Diversion Services and extend contracts until June 30th, 2015. So contract number 1 is $114,300, number 2 is $38,685, and number 3 is $46,260. And the last item is to approve amendment number 1 to the intergovernmental agreement with Chemeketa Community College to add $90,000 to the SOAR program and extend the agreement until June 30th, 2015.
All right. Is there a second to approve
I'll
that?
second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded to approve our consent calendar this morning. Any further discussion?
Oh, just a brief discussion, and that is that there are a lot of items under the sheriff that impact our reentry initiative. And we're very excited. We had a meeting yesterday about the justice reinvestment dollars. That's the big amount that we see here. And it's allowing us to be able to sustain some services and actually add some treatment services. So it's a good thing.
Great, thank you. Anything else? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, motion passes. And now we have 4 action items, 2 of which will be done after public hearings that start at 9:30. So we'll take the next under health, consider approval of an order appointing Sierra Nelson as a student member of the Marion County Health Advisory Board to a term ending June 30th, 2015. Kathy Crocker and Patrick Vance.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Kathy Crocker, Volunteer Services Coordinator for Marion County. And today we have a special appointment on the Marion County Health Advisory Board. And Patrick Vance, the chair of that board, is here today. He can give us a little background perhaps on what issues, public and mental health, that the board deals with. And then I'll give Sierra the chance and opportunity to introduce herself. She is a student at Western Oregon University and will be going later to study pre-med. So she's got the desire and interest in health issues for this county. And so first, turn it over to you, Patrick.
Thanks, Kathy. I'm Patrick Vance, and I chair the County Health Advisory Board. Commissioners, as you know, that board exists under Oregon law to provide advice from the community to the commissioners with regard to issues of public health. In Marion County, the board also addresses issues of mental health. It's a combined board. We meet monthly. There are 10 active members, and we meet with staff in an advisory capacity and questioning and advising them on issues such as the things you dealt with this morning. But I'm here today to endorse the appointment of Sierra Nelson. Ms. Nelson is a very impressive young woman. She's a college student right now, so she comes to us as a student member of our advisory board. But we're hoping, and she's, over the last couple of months as she's met with us, we're hoping that she'll consider, as she moves on in her career, a position as an active member. She has a great interest in health of the community, public health and mental health, and she's just a great addition to our work, and we're hoping she'll consider staying after her year appointment goes.
So Sierra, I'll turn it over to you. Maybe give us some points of your interest in this board.
Hi. So as they said, I'm a current student over at Western Oregon University. I'm a junior this year. In search of trying to basically, so I guess I'll give you a little bit of a background. So I'm trying to go to school to become an anesthesiologist. I decided that to be the best kind of health provider I can be, I wanted to get an experience of all aspects of the health fields, whether that was just through volunteering, which I do over at some free clinics, or if it's firsthand, which I do as my current job, and also a general overview. So whether it's getting that knowledge of what's going on within a city, within a county, within a state, I figured that if I could get that kind of information and be able to contribute to that and put my input in and my experience as a college student, that it would help me to become a better health provider overall in my lifetime and be able to help a lot more people. So I started looking into the county board, the Marion County Health Advisory Board, and thought, that would be a really great experience for me to be able to contribute to a board, give them my input as a college student, on the issues, or maybe kind of also hear about the issues that I don't always know about and that not a lot of other people know about. So it's been a really good experience so far. I've learned a lot already, and it's been nice. I like it.
Well, thank you for coming forward, and I think you're right. This is to get as wide a base of knowledge as you can as you head into things. It may even focus you where you want to be, but in the meantime, we'll enjoy your services. Any other comments?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Sierra, for coming forward and volunteering and doing that. What's your current job? You said that you're getting experience into the health field. You share a little bit about that?
I am a direct support professional too with Sunny Oaks Incorporated. So that means that I support adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. I just recently took a CNA class, program, and I'm now pursuing getting my certification through that to hopefully be able to work with Oregon State Hospital.
Thank you.
Well, let me just add my thanks for you being willing to be on our Marion County Health Advisory Board. You're going to have great mentors and role models on that group. It's an active group, and they cover a broad variety of issues, as Patrick pointed out. Sounds like you're a busy lady with working and going to school and volunteering, and I think that your perspective is going to add a lot also to that group, because we need all ages and people from with different viewpoints to be able to create policy that works for everyone in Marion County. So thank you again.
Thank you.
So as you know, Commissioners, usually the appointments for the Health Advisory Board are a 4-year term. But since this is a student position, it is for a 1-year term to end June 30th, 2015. And perhaps within that year, the board can be persuasive enough to keep Sierra on.
Mr. Chair, I'll move approval of an order appointing Sarah Nelson as a student member to the Marion County Health Advisory Board to a term that ends on June 30th, 2015.
And I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded to appoint Sierra Nelson, a student member of Marion County Health Advisory. Further questions, comments? I don't hear or see any. All in favor, then say aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you and congratulations. And then before I just let Patrick go, I don't know if you're planning on staying for the whole budget presentation. Was that just coincidental?
It was actually coincidental, Commissioner, although I would love to do that.
Well, you don't have to, but I did want to say, and since you're here, again, Patrick serves as our chair of our budget committee and does great service too to the county and in many different ways as we see today. So I want to again thank you for all that.
And he also serves as the chair of the Community Advisory Council. I just sat next to him at a board meeting yesterday, so he's doing service in so many different ways.
I think one of the award recipients earlier said, hey, she did it because it was fun and she enjoyed it, and I guess I have to echo that. The activities I'm involved in are more fun for me than other hobbies of fly fishing or something, so I do it for fun. Commissioner, you look puzzled.
Well, even budget committee, be serious. Be serious, Patrick.
I thought he was going to say then work, and then he caught himself and said fly fishing, so.
But thank you. I will stay. I haven't had a chance to do that in the past, so I'll stay. Thank you. And thank you again for the appointment.
All right, our next item were those 3 subjects taken off the consent calendar having to do with the treasurer. Lori Steele's here. I don't know if you wish to take them all individually or what, but I'll read the first one and then you can go from there. The first is approve an order authorizing the investment of surplus funds by the Marion County Treasurer.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Brentano, and good morning, Commissioners. I'm Lori Steele, the Marion County Treasurer, and I did think that there would be some value for me to come in and talk briefly about each of these issues this morning because Commissioner Cameron isn't familiar with these issues that I bring to you periodically and hasn't had an opportunity to hear me talk about them. So I thought I'd give him an opportunity to hear what I'm doing and ask any questions that he might have. But the first item is an order authorizing investment of surplus funds. And this is an order that comes before the board every fiscal year at the beginning of the fiscal year or in preparation for the new fiscal year. And it authorizes me as the county treasurer to invest surplus funds. Surplus funds means those funds that aren't going to be needed in the next 12 to 18 months to cover cash flow needs. We do have an investment policy at Marion County that should be reviewed by the board annually that governs how we invest and what we may invest in addition to statutes for the state of Oregon as well. The investment policy, I'm doing a little bit of tweaking on it right now, and it should be ready to come before the board for review in July, next month, so you'll get to see me again. But I wanted to just briefly discuss this order because it is something that you will see every year from me, requesting authorization to invest surplus funds. Any questions about that one?
Oh, should we make a motion on that now? And I think taking them individually would probably be better. So, go ahead.
An order authorizing investment of surplus funds by the Marion County Treasurer.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, moved and seconded, approve the order authorizing investment of surplus funds. Any further discussion? Then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That one passes.
Thank you.
1 out of 1.
Okay. So far, so good. The second item I'm bringing before you today is for the redistribution of change funds at the Public Works Department. And just a little bit of history about this item. Several years ago, my staff and I began looking at petty cash and change funds that departments have out at their locations. We updated the county administrative policy relating to petty cash and change funds, and shortly after that, we started an initiative to go out to the departments and audit the money that they have in those locations. We want to make sure that the money that they have is not only appropriate, the dollar amount is appropriate, but the funds are still necessary, because some of those petty cash funds have been out there since the 1960s and 70s. They've been there for a very long time, and we want to make sure that they're still necessary for doing business. We also want to make sure that there's a proper board approval for them to have the funds. In some cases, we can't always find a board order that matches the amount of money that departments have, so we put paperwork in place. We also want to make sure that the general ledger accurately reflects the amount of money in the departments that matches the board order. So that's a body of work that we started doing several years ago. It frequently gets put to the bottom of the pile of things to do because we have pressing matters that we need to take care of. So it's surfaced once again. It's something that not only my staff and I are prioritizing, but we have the assistance of the finance department working with us. We're going to be doing a lot of audits, so you'll be seeing these resolutions come before you more frequently. This one in particular is not something I initiated, but actually Dennis Mansfield. I want to give Dennis some kudos. He's the accounting supervisor at Public Works, and he has been doing a tremendous work around the review of the cash flow distribution at Public Works, how it's managed, the petty cash, the change funds. He's making changes that improve the accountability and the controls at the Public Works Department, and he's been doing a tremendous job, and because of the work he's doing, it's making my job much easier. So I want to thank Dennis for the work he's doing at Public Works and ask you to approve the redistribution of the change funds that will, in fact, decrease the amount of money they have on hand at Public Works and allow fewer employees to actually have access to the funds.
Questions?
Motion? So, Mr. Chair, I would move that we approve a resolution redistributing the following change funds for Public Works Silverton Road Campus. Under the Surveyor Division, eliminate a $50 change fund. Under Building Inspection Division, reduce the existing change fund from $350 to $200. And under the Administration Division, create a second change fund in the amount of $100 for a second workstation at the reception desk.
I'll second.
Vice moved and seconded, approve those 3 changes. Any further discussion? Hearing all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. And the third item is approve a 3-year contract with Elevon Incorporated to provide payment processing services to Marion County. Lori?
Thank you. It was time, our contract with our existing merchant provider or payment provider from Marion County had expired, so it was time to conduct an RFP and find the best services that we could for payment provider merchant services. And while I was going through the RFP process, writing our existing RFP and just getting ready to release that, we did, in fact, discover that Metro had recently conducted an RFP process, and because of their volume, they received a tremendous rate that Marion County on our own would not have been able to get because our volume is not as large as Metro, and many banks price companies based on their volume. So Metro did have language in their contract that allowed us to piggyback onto their contract. So that's the contract that is before you for approval today. I'm very excited about changing providers. The new provider that we would be using in this contract is Elevon through U.S. Bank. And that is actually the company that I always call with my questions when I have questions around the payment card industry regulations and whether or not Marion County is compliant. So we're bringing on board a tremendous expert in the field of payment card industry compliance, and I'm very excited about that.
Mr. Chair, I'll move a 3-year contract with Avalon, Inc. to provide payment processing services for Marion County.
I'll second the motion.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the 3-year contract with Elevon for payment processing. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Lori, thank you for coming in, explaining that.
Thank you very much.
All right, it is now slightly past 9:30, therefore perfectly appropriate to open a public hearing having to do with considering approval of a resolution to adopt the third supplemental budget for fiscal year 2013-14. Thank you. Jeff White, Richard Meinecker.
Chair Brentano, Commissioners, I'm Jeff White, the Chief Financial Officer for Marion County. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Richard Meinecker, who's going to present to you the third supplemental budget for fiscal year 13-14.
Good morning, Commissioners, and I'm pleased that I'm going before Mr. Latimer's presentation. Usually I'm the one that gets after the dazzling presentation, and this time I get to lead.
You get to dazzle us this time, huh?
Yeah.
No, I get to kind of bore you, and then his presentation, by comparison, will seem so much
All right,
better
there we go, okay.
that he will
That's
thank
great.
me. I'm here to present the third supplemental budget request for the fiscal year 2013-14 budget. Oregon revised statutes require that increases to appropriation authority from the original adopted budget must be adopted by the governing body. In addition, any changes to the original budget adopted for expenditures that exceed 10% must be published in a local newspaper, and a public hearing must be held to allow for public input on the proposed changes to the budget. Public notice of this supplemental budget was published in the Statesman Journal newspaper in accordance with statutory requirements. The budget information is available on the Marion County website and at the board's office reception desk. Details of the third supplemental budget were reviewed with the Board of Commissioners at Management Update on June 9th. The third supplemental budget increases the total budget by $5,594,398. I will discuss the highlights of the supplemental budget. All amounts will be stated to the nearest $1,000. The general fund total budget will increase by $4,000 due to a transfer in from the Children and Families Fund. Both Community Services Department and Justice Court budgets are increased to avoid potential small over expenditures, $22,000 and $10,000 respectively. Contingency is reduced to cover the increases. The Sheriff's Office is decreasing personnel services and increasing materials and services contracted service by $125,000 to cover increased inmate hospital costs. Contingency is reduced by $120,000 for a special payment in the form of an operating loan to the Marion County Housing Authority. The Capital Improvement Projects Fund budget will increase by $139,000. The total resource increase is comprised of the following transfers in: $20,000 transfer in from the Community Corrections Fund, $112,000 from the Traffic Safety Team Fund, and $7,000 from the Sheriff Grants Fund. Capital outlay is increased by $151,000 by utilizing the transfers in plus a $12,000 reduction in contingency. $131,000 will be used to increase the budget for the Sheriff's Office mobile data system, and $19,000 is allocated to purchase X-ray security equipment at the county jail. The Courthouse Square Redevelopment Fund has no change in total budget. However, there are major shifts between categories. Utilizing savings, materials and services, contracted services are decreased by $675,000, and capital outlay is decreased by $650,000. The resultant $1,325,000 available is reallocated to transfers out to the Facility Renovation Fund for the parking garage construction program. The county school funds budget will increase by $319,000 from Secure Rural Schools Title II funding not anticipated earlier in the budget process. The funds will be distributed to county school districts in accordance with state statute requirements. The Courthouse Square Remediation Fund budget will not increase, but will have major category shifts. Capital outlay is increased $250,000, and there is a $950,000 transfer out to the Facility Renovation Fund for allocation to the parking garage construction program. Contingency is reduced by $1,200,000 to fund these items. The District Attorney Grants Fund budget will increase by $145,000 due to an increase in intergovernmental grant funds. $19,000 is allocated to personnel services to fund a Deputy District Attorney 1 that was hired March 31st to staff the intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon State Hospital. $9,000 is allocated in materials and services for various purposes. The balance is allocated to ending fund balance to carry over to next fiscal year. The Facility Renovation Fund will increase by $2,275,000. The increase is from a $950,000 transfer in from the Courthouse Square Remediation Fund and a $1,325,000 transfer in from the Courthouse Square Redevelopment Fund. These amounts are savings in the transfer out funds that are allocated to the parking garage construction program. The health fund budget will increase $2,334,000. The major revenue increase is restored state funding of $2,292,000 for adult residential services that have been expected to be transferred to coordinated care organizations. Federal revenue of $67,000 for federal incentive for electronic medical records upgrades. The new revenue plus $597,000 reduction in contingency is primarily allocated to a $2.5 million pass-through for funding for developmental disabilities, family support, and adult residential services. And $200,000 is allocated to capital outlay for tenant improvements and data connections for a new Beverly Avenue office. The non-departmental grants fund budget will increase by $306,000. Unanticipated Secure Rural Schools Titles 2 and 3 funds received will be allocated $163,000 to materials and services for pass-through funds for Bureau of Land Management forest improvement projects recommended by resource advisory committees, and $143,000 is allocated to ending fund balance to save for future county search and rescue and forest patrol activities in expectation of no future Title III funding. And that concludes the highlights. Are there any questions?
Chair, if I could.
Are we too dazzled to respond?
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, I would just say that this is a lot of puts and takes in the budget to adjust it before we move into next year's budget, and I very much appreciate all the work of the finance department and making sure that we do that. When we do that, we have fewer audit exceptions too, because we're adjusting the budget so that as we end the year, everything has adequate amount of budget authority. So with that, I would move that we close the public hearing and adopt the third supplemental budget for fiscal year 2013-14.
All right,
I'll second.
moved and seconded to close public hearing and adopt the third supplemental budget for 2013-14. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Truly thank you all too.
Mr. Chair, you know, Rich puts these together, and it's a very complex job to do it, particularly working with all the individual departments. And I want to thank Rich for his work and his dazzling presentation.
Thank you.
Next public hearing is one that's a year in the making and culmination of another example of lots of work. It's a public hearing to consider adopting the budget for fiscal year 2014 and 15, make related appropriations, and impose and categorize property taxes. John Latimer and Jeff White. And when ready, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioners, I'll do my best to dazzle you with this budget. We've already done most of the work in budget hearings. The Budget Committee has approved a budget for your adoption. And so what I want to do then is go through what the Budget Committee approved and ask for your vote to adopt the budget. We talked a bit when I presented my budget about some of those budget and policy issues that are driving our budget. I think it's really interesting in what is happening with property tax revenues because, as you remember, in the last quarter of 2008, the economy kind of went down. I'll just put it that way. We had a big drop in our revenues, and the state had a big drop, and so the federal government. So we lost a lot of revenues, not just in property taxes, but really across the board. One of the things that I presented to the Budget Committee was a chart that showed the property tax collection rates over the last several years. And we had a 7.7% increase in 05-06. And it just went downhill from there to a 1% increase in 12-13. So we've been living on much reduced funds. In the 9-10 budget, you'll remember we laid off about 43, 45 people and we've reduced over 100 positions since then in the county workforce. And we really haven't increased that since. Other than in the health department, because they keep getting funds from the state and federal government for grants and programs that they need to manage. So property tax revenue has increased. In fact, we have, as you know, a council of advisors that helps us predict our revenues, and for 13-14, they predicted a 2% increase in property taxes. It actually went up 4.13, and so that created a fairly healthy beginning balance for our general fund, 9.1 million. So we're thinking that we've rounded the bend, and we may be in much better shape in future years with our property tax revenues. But as I said in my budget message, I'm not recommending that we do a lot of permanent increases in programs and people, at least until we have a much better view of how our revenues are going to go. PERS and other benefits are an important driver in our budget. We spend a little over $11 million in PERS dollars countywide, and $21 million in health benefits. So those are really important drivers of our budget, particularly as we're a people budget. We run a lot of services for the people of Marion County, and those add to personal services costs. We had, as you remember, when we moved out of Courthouse Square, we had to change some of our administrative charge methodology because we were moving into lease space, and we had to pay for lease costs. That change has now been reversed because we're no longer paying those lease costs. And so while we didn't make any dramatic changes in the administrative charge methodology, we did change the cost structure for many of the departments. In debt service, I think it's important to know that the county is 80% under the statutory limit on debt service. But we do have debt, particularly for PERS. When many years ago, the legislature allowed local governments to adopt bonds to pay their PERS liability. Oh. Atisha's always hovering around. I never know what's going to happen next. So anyway, our debt service for those PERS bonds is about 3.4 million. And then there was a debt, this building was built back in 99 and 2000, and the county issued bonds, actually certificates of participation to pay for the building. And I can't remember what year it was, but it was after I got here in 2003. We refinanced at lower interest rates to lower the cost of those bonds. And we also have infrastructure debt that we used last year for the sheriff's office, the health department, and other infrastructure remediation. And this year, we're proposing additional capital improvements. We have aging infrastructure, and as this board knows, I've always argued that it makes a lot of sense to maintain your infrastructure because it can get to the point where it costs a lot more money to fix it, as we're finding out with the health department building and the jail and others. So I'm recommending that we go ahead and finish our remediation of the health department building, the jail, HVAC, and other systems on the sheriff's campus. And also, I'm recommending a parking garage remediation, the parking garage that is next to the courthouse, and that's for $10 million. I skipped decision packages. I apologize for that. But we have, I think for 4 years, I approved about 10 decision packages, and the Budget Committee went along with those. This year, I've proposed 18. And those decision packages are for a variety of operational needs in the county, and they range from $143,000 for community services, and about $69,000 for grants coordinator and finance department, among other small increases. You've all seen the presentations on the department budgets. I thought I'd make a couple comments about, as you can see in this list, clearly the largest one is the health department, but only out of that 74 million, only a little over 3 million, about 3.5 million is general fund. The rest is state funds, federal funds, and charges for service. Plus they have a fairly healthy ending fund balance. The general fund is primarily, as you can see, in public safety, the sheriff's office, 57 million, the district attorney at 10, and juvenile at 13 million. That's where we put most of our property tax revenues in the general fund. And additionally, of course, the assessor and the clerk's office are primarily a general fund. There's also a whole lot of dollars that aren't in this budget appropriated to departments. It's our non-departmental and other funds, and it's called non-department fund because these are appropriations that aren't appropriated for any particular department. The largest is, of course, the general fund, and it's mostly general fund transfers out to a variety of purposes, such as the money we transfer to several non-general fund departments, like the health department for the $3.5 million there. And then, of course, there's transfers to the debt service and the like. So you can see that non-departmental is fairly large, fairly sizable appropriation. We also, I talked a little bit earlier about capital projects, and I thought I'd put this up to show you that we're still working on the health department, the sheriff's jail complex, and then a variety of small projects, and of course, public works, roads and bridges. The courthouse square parking garage, the courthouse parking garage, is composed of $5 million loan, $3 million net working capital, and $1 million transfer from the Capital Improvement Projects Fund, and $1 million general fund transfer. One of the important things that I always look at when I'm doing the budget is how solvent we are and what kinds of reserves we have. GFOA recommends at least 10% of resources of contingencies and ending fund balance and reserves. So, and we're at 10.9. Our board policy requires that we have a general fund contingency in excess of 1%, and this budget has 1.8, nearly 2%. The policy also requires a 5% general fund unappropriated balance, and this 4.5 million is 6.1%. When you total those up with the rainy day fund, it's almost 11% of reserves. I think for our viewing audience, we might want to look at how the dollars are spread across our various programs in the county. So you can see that public safety is one of the large ones. These are operating budgets, by the way. Transportation, emergency management, health and community services is very large, and what we call operational efficiency and quality service, and growth and infrastructure and economic development. The general fund, which is primarily funded through the property tax, is composed about 78% for our public safety, and this is the sheriff, DA, and juvenile department, plus the justice court. And we have the operational efficiency, which is primarily our clerk and assessor, and then the health and community services. So you have the total budget here, and there is a technical adjustment that we're proposing, and I think what I want to do is, this is really a technical adjustment. We had the dollars in the wrong place, and we need to put them from other funds to personal services for adjustments there. I think it's important also to understand that there's about $222 million that are in dedicated and other funds. And some of those large funds are like the self-insurance fund, $33 million, the health fund, $67 million. We have the environmental services fund with $34 million, and the road fund, $49 million. I mean, these are big funds that are required either by statute or prudent maintenance of reserves in those programs. I've got Jeff here sitting with me because I want him to talk to you about reserve funds and a requirement under ORS 294-346. Jeff?
Chair Brentano, Commissioners, Jeff White, Chief Financial Officer for Marion County. In the Oregon Revised Statutes, ORS 294.346, there's a requirement that the governing body review reserve funds no less than 10 years after their establishment. We have 3 reserve funds that are included in the fiscal year 14-15 budget and want to bring them to your attention. The first one is the Rainy Day Reserve Fund, and you will note this would be the 10th anniversary of that fund. So to meet the statutory requirement, we're giving you the opportunity to review the necessity of that. Its purpose was established by resolution for financial emergencies. The 14-15 budget includes a little over $2.2 million in the Rainy Day Reserve Fund. We do have 2 other reserve funds that have not hit the 10-year mark, but we wanted just to review them all. In the fiscal year 14-15 budget, we've included a capital building and equipment reserve fund of just under $300,000. That was funding set aside for future major capital purchases and projects. And we also have the health building reserve fund that was established just 4 years ago to help with construction-related or purchase of a potential health department facility. In the 14-15 budget, that fund is actually entirely set as a transfer out to assist with the renovation project that will occur. And we will likely then, in 14-15, come back to you to ask to abolish that fund because it will no longer be necessary. But for the time, as part of the budget process, our review would indicate that these funds are still necessary and therefore have been included in the fiscal year 14-15 budget. I don't think there's any formal motion the statute requires.
I was just going to ask that, so it's already included in what we'll do.
It's included in the budget, and it's there, and unless for some reason you have a desire to do something differently with those funds, they're there, and you've seen them, and we believe they're necessary.
Question.
Certainly.
Mr. Chair, thank you. So in the Rainy Day Reserve Fund, is there any language when it was established in 2004 or a target amount in that language?
No. There is not. At one point, that fund was up over $4 million. We did use a couple $1 million to offset some of the larger PERS increases a couple of years ago in the budget, but there is no identified target in the resolution.
Follow up, Mr. Chair. So, and I think, John, you had mentioned you're trying to get that back up to 5% of the general fund at some point in time? I think I heard that.
That's not the rainy day fund, but the reserves, the any fund balance. And we really would like to get total reserves over 10%, which we have now.
Yeah, the future slide showed 10.9, right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, could I just add to the conversation? So the board not only passed a policy on establishing the rainy day fund, which I think when we took the $2 million out, we did state on the record that it was our goal to replenish that to at least the $4 million that it was at before. But also we had a policy, because there was none when I came on, about how much we needed to have as an overall reserve for Marion County. So that's the unappropriated ending balance in addition to these reserves and contingency, correct? That's how we...
That's right.
That's right, and when we started it, I'm trying to think, we used the, was it GFOA? There were policies that came out of some organizations, the government...
GFOA, the
Government Finance Officers Association, which they recommended, I'm thinking it was between
10 and 15.
Between 10 and 15%. When we got into reduced revenue situation and we were really crunched, so we were caught between our policy and we were already doing, that one year, the 2008-09, I think we lost 30 positions and when we moved into Courthouse Square, issues and all of that. So we actually adjusted the policy to say that it had to be, I mean, because it was higher before, right?
It was
We used-
8%.
What did we reduce it to?
It was 8%, we reduced it to 5%.
Right. And I think, didn't we have a range in it? Was it at least 5, or we talked about a range? Anyway, so we did have a lot of conversation about 10 years ago on what that ought to be. And so the budget officers have, tried the budget officer and the budget team have made sure that we're within the policy. But it's always our purview to revisit that policy and say, do we want, now that things are getting a little better, do we want to keep it at 5%, or, do we want to try to get a little bit of a higher threshold? And we don't have to change the policy to do that either. I mean, that's a floor for us to look for.
Thank you. I would agree that obviously that's why you had the reserves, was for the time we just went through. And as we're coming back out of that, just wanted to make sure there's what the target was, so that I understand that we're trying to get back up to 10 and 15% total number again for the next rainy day that occurs. As the chair says, 1 year does not make a trend.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Cameron, I think it's important that we maintain this very conservative approach. It doesn't mean we don't provide the services that are expected of us by the citizens of Marion County. And we really are trying to preserve those services and the people that provide them, because we have, as you found, Commissioner Cameron, going around the county, we have very good staff, excellent people committed to those services. So these reserves help us maintain that through the bad times.
Thank you.
Just one last comment as you prepare to move forward to discussing and hopefully adopting this budget. For the viewing audience, I would want to make sure that you and they were aware that this public hearing was properly noticed in the Statesman Journal on June 11th, both for the public hearing and a summary of the 14-15 budget was printed also. You have a resolution that was in your packet, but this morning I handed you a revised one. I underlined the portion that was revised. It's just a simple piece of the sentence that was added to make it a little more clear why the adopted budget looks slightly different by that $8,703 from what the motion was the Budget Committee approved. I actually have a clean copy without the underline for when you're prepared to sign it.
All right.
Mr. Chair, if I might, first of all, I'd like to thank the budget team. As you know, they do human service getting this budget put together. We started last December and worked all the way through till June to make the budget work. And at the same time, we were trying to move back into this building. So it was an interesting time. I'd also like to thank Marion County employees. As you saw this morning from the presentations we had before the board, we have very high-quality employees, and we're really proud of them. And I want to thank them for their work, because they make my job easier, and they make all of us look good, and I appreciate it. And of course, the Budget Committee and the Council of Economic Advisors, they work with us and help us as we present the budget. One of the things that I said when I presented my budget a few weeks ago, this is my 10th, 11th budget, and 10 years ago, I came and asked the board to help me create an enterprise approach to managing government, particularly Marion County government. And we've done that. Yesterday, I sat in, Commissioner Carlson has pushed this. We're about to change our website, so we get a better face for Marion County to the public. And the contractor that's helping us do that talked about how our current website is siloed by department. And I thought, well, there you go. Now we're finally getting to finishing that enterprise approach to county government and doing away with all those silos. So I think it's obvious that we have great leadership here in the board, and I think we'll continue that as we move forward. And I hope after I leave many years from now, that you will continue trying to promote enterprise approach. I know when I worked for state government, several of us tried and failed, but I think we're getting there here now in Marion County. So I appreciate all your help in that, and thank you.
Couple
Please.
comments and a question. So the first is a technical question for Jeff on this revised resolution. So I had to read this a couple times. So the budget approved by the Marion County budget was intended to be the amount that we're doing today. So, and the amounts are both the same. So in other words, the budget amount that we approved when we were with the budget committee was $8,703 less than the amount in the same paragraph. Is that right?
Yeah, that's a conundrum how to have this debate.
I was just reading that going, what?
If you'll recall, as part of the Budget Committee, there was a few minor adjustments the Budget Committee made. And we did not go back and enter those numbers in and bring you a new sheet that said, here's the impact of those changes, because we assured you it would not change the total budget.
But it did.
It did. One of those adjustments, although funded by the general fund, takes place in another fund, and we had to do a transfer which upped the budget. So the Budget Committee approved all the changes. So on one hand, you could say, well, really, they did approve all those.
All right.
But the motion we gave you was $8,700 wrong, so mathematically, we didn't compute it right.
And that's a really good point, Jeff, because when we do some of these transfers in the budget, it actually double counts money. So so if you were to actually crunch it down and say, well, here's how many the dollars are, it would be less than this number that we're actually approving.
Yes, absolutely. Transfers in and transfers out and how they impact the funds, and that's what this is.
Right.
We did reduce contingency to cover that change, but we didn't think through the fact that we had to also include a transfer for that amount for that one item. So whether you're actually changing the budget or not that the Budget Committee approved, I don't know how you'd follow that
Yeah, it's a
debate,
technical change, right?
but either way, the statute allows you to make a change if you want, but I don't think you really are. I think you're just adopting the correct number.
Right, okay, great. So two more comments. One is I did actually see the notice in the Statesman Journal, and this budget, and you've gone over this, but I just want to reemphasize it, is that the statute requires us to adopt budgets by fund. But really, in Marion County, when we're looking at all the funds interweave together to create programs and services. So it's the notice that was in the newspaper actually was by program, and then talked about the different programs that were under there. And I really liked the notice. It was nice, I saw it. And we've done that for a few years. Second is that we've talked about the Budget Committee. We had a very compressed Budget Committee schedule this year, given the move back to Courthouse Square and all of the activity that was surrounding that. But I think overall, we had an opportunity to review thoroughly this budget, and I know there was a lot of work that was put in behind the scenes before it ever came to the Budget Committee. And so, again, I want to express my appreciation to the people that served on the Budget Committee, Patrick, who is still here, who chaired it, and our other two citizen members, and also to thank everyone on the budget team and Jan and our budget officer for all of the hard work that they do to make this possible. And I do want to let Rich know that I will have my corrections to you later on today as I approve the budget book. But it's very clean copy this year. I was very impressed. And they all kind of fall in a couple departments, so you'll see. Anyway, it's a lot fewer than it has been in prior years. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I thought it was, the reason we were all excited was it's all about me being sworn in.
Oh, I'm certain that was a big part of everything.
And 24 hours later, get to ask all the questions that I needed to ask on the budget, so I totally understood it based on the great presentation. So I just want to thank staff who has been helping me try to get my hands around what is a pretty complicated process and budget, but I want to thank you for being patient and allowing me to ask the questions, especially you, John. And I think next year I'll be ready to go. Thanks.
All right, there's no one signed up to speak in public comment, but go ahead.
While I hesitate to do this, I think I should point out a slight change from previous years in the resolution attachment. Not that, well, we want to make sure we're complying with Oregon Revised Statute, and the Department of Revenue recently issued some clarifying opinion on their part, so that the attachment, which is generally one column of numbers, they indicated that they believe the statute requires at least two columns to separate out by appropriated and unappropriated. It does nothing to change what you're adopting. It just changes the format from what you've seen in prior years. You'll also notice a couple of other non-departmentally identified lines. That's another thing that they believe the statute requires, so we have complied with their recent information.
All right. Anything else? And perhaps a motion to approve it all. Kevin?
Read this whole, oh, that motion, okay. But, I'll consider approval of the resolution to adopt the fiscal year 2014-15 budget, make related appropriations, and impose the categorized property taxes. Oh, and close the public hearing.
This may be a little clearer to approve the budget as presented, but we're all on the same page. You're adopting.
Adopting, right.
Thank you. All right, is there a second?
I second the motion.
Okay, we're pretty clear on what it is. We're adopting fiscal year 2014 budget, make related appropriations, and impose and categorize property taxes. Further discussion? I don't hear any. We've talked about it plenty, so all in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes again. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Now, the last that we have to do today is read the places we'll be at together. This afternoon, 1:30 to 2:30, a reentry job barrier meeting in the Salem Chamber of Commerce, 1110 Commercial Street Northeast in Salem. Tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock to 9, City of Salem, Marion County meeting. That'll be held at Sassy Onion Restaurant, 1244 State Street in Salem. Friday, 6 o'clock to 10, Marion Ag Services 21st Annual Grower Appreciation Barbecue, St. Paul J.C.'s Bullpen Park and 3rd Street, and a 3rd Street in St. Paul. I might mention that my cousin leads the band. I don't know why that's important, but if you like it, well, he can do more than 6 notes, you know what I'm telling you? All right, Monday, 8:30 to 9, Commissioner Calendar Review in the Silverton Conference Room, 555 Court Street Northeast in Salem. And then we have some changes that will be different than what you might be seeing on TV screens. Monday, 9 till 10:30, Management Update, Silverton Conference Room, 5th floor, 555 Court Street. That'll be followed by, if necessary, an executive session from 10:30 to 11. And from then 11 to 12, Board of Commissioners, Chief Administrative Officers meeting, executive session pursuant to 192-6602D, and other if needed pursuant to ORS 192-6602A, F, and I. So it looks pretty inclusive. Silverton Conference Room, 5th floor, 555 Court Street in Salem. Then Monday, 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock is a state representatives interview replacing Kevin Cameron in the Senator Hearing Room, 555 Northeast in Salem. Tuesday, 8:30 to 10, Community Corrections Board, Silverton Conference Room, 5th floor, Courthouse Square. Then 10:30 to 11:30, a work session having to do with community projects, a grant program review of applications, Silverton Conference Room, Courthouse Square. And then our next Wednesday, 9 to 1, our next board session here in the Senator Hearing Room in Courthouse Square, 555 Court Street Northeast in Salem. I might just say then, makes it a special day. The budget's done. The whole year seems to gear up for this point. Maybe it's anticlimactic, but it's always nice to have it done. And then also today is the last group is moving into Courthouse Square after all of our efforts. Elections will be moving from Commercial Street, and you may have heard, I don't know if it shows up in the background, I could hear trucks running and doors slamming, so they're coming in. I hope they're not slamming doors in anger, but we'll be all together and truly not a silo anymore, John, and the end of that process, too. So we wrap up the fiscal year at least and turn right around in a couple of weeks in the new one, and pretty happy. Anything else?
Well, this is Commissioner Cameron's first normal quote-unquote board session, because last week we started early, and so this is kind of the first week to, like, where we're starting at 9 and kind of going through the regular. We were so discombobulated, if that's a word, last week, where we had our presentation towards the end, and, you know, it was crazy. So hopefully it'll move on from here in a more reasoned way for us to work.
There will be a normal.
Mr. Chair, you forgot who you appointed to the board. I don't know that normal is normal.
Okay. Oh, that's true. He doesn't.
I thought last week was normal.
I just wanted to point out last week was not normal, and so this is normal.
I don't know what that would be.
The new normal, they always talk about.
Right.
Yeah, you're going to have to live with me.
All right, anything else this morning? Then let's call this meeting adjourned.